Welcome to Thinkin Bros. I'm Chris.
And I'm Alex.
We're your favorite corner store philosophers trying to figure out life one conundrum at a time. And today we have a special guest, Anna.
Hey.
So she started off as a professional frisbee player, and now she's been an occupational therapist for some years. And we're
Oh
going to be
yeah.
talking. The reason she's invited to the podcast is because today we're talking about her specialty, family. So she has a family. Those are her certifications. And what,
Definitely.
yeah, what differentiates her from any other guest. But all jokes aside, we're honored and very happy to have you. So let me introduce the topic by recounting how I see. What we're trying to establish today is how family is superior to a good friend. That's how I see the goal for today because I feel like that's maybe something you would endorse. Let's start off with the following. Do you endorse that there's something special about family that you cannot obtain through friendship?
Yes.
Awesome. So that's a very good
What
start.
about you guys?
Well, actually, I would argue that no, Alex.
My intuition is that there is, and I agree with Anna, but maybe you'll change my mind today.
Awesome. So the two differences that I see um, between a good friend and a family member are the blood bond, which I mean, rationally, I don't really hold to be that significant, and the presence of a choice in choosing to have a relationship with that person, right? With family, there isn't much of a choice, and I think that's, in fact, what makes friends superior to family members. But let's start with the blood bond. I feel like it's more of a basic one. It's very biological. Do you think the presence of a blood bond with someone holds any relevance? Let's start with
Um
our expert on family.
She
Honestly,
has a
I don't
family.
I don't think so.
Uh huh.
I would have to think more about it because we'll come back to it, but my intuition is that the difference in what actually makes family sometimes, well, definitely different from friends is that there's no choice in like with your family members, they're imposed, and I think this is wealthy in some way.
You think it adds to the relationship?
Definitely.
Interesting. Alex, do you have anything to say? Because I feel like when we move on to choice, we're going to be stuck on that for a while.
Yeah, I think there's not much to say about blood bond. Um, just the fact itself that you're linked by blood doesn't really mean anything. The random genetic mutations, the random combination of that come from dad and mom, just make people different, and you could be two completely different people even if you're bound by blood. I think that seems obvious.
Okay, so let's enter this thought experiment early because what I think is very important. I think last episode we discussed, well, no, actually, in a secret episode that we haven't released yet, we discussed the importance of. Well, actually, we just mentioned the importance of in the release of new drugs instead of beating. And I know Anna, you've taken this course. Instead of beating placebo as um, in its efficiency, let's say we want to release a headache drug, instead of beating placebo, some clinicians argue that they should beat the industry standard in their release. And what I'm trying to say today is that we determine how family is significant has a significant difference from a best friend. How can you one up the relationship with a best friend one would have, right? So consider the best friend the industry standard of a strong relationship. How is a
Mhm.
family superior to that? That's what I'm trying to determine. And the thought experiment is the following. So if you entertain a certain relationship with someone, let's say they become your best friend or they become simply a friend or whatever relationship you want to imagine, and then it is revealed to you that you have a blood bond, right? That you are a family member. That is the only additional thing that is revealed to you. Let's say you only met them when you were 10 or 15 or you were separated at birth and something happened and you're reunited, but you don't know yet. And then after developing fully the relationship with them, it is revealed that they're your family member. Do you think that that will affect your relationship with them in any way?
I think what you just said, the thought experiment, only talks about blood bond. The
Exactly, but that's
I know
why
I
we're
know
still on that.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, okay, okay.
Let's
I'll
say
speak after, but
because
my intuition
it kind of
about it.
isolates the choice part because we're saying the big difference between friends and family is the choice part, right? You don't choose who your family is, but you choose who your friends are. So let's say you do choose them first, and then it is revealed that they're your family. Let's just kind of determine that the blood bond part is truly irrelevant. Do you think that the this discovery would change your relationship in any way?
No.
Okay.
Not really. I think maybe there would be some excitement after this discovery, just because it's so crazy. But I don't think the blood bond really changes anything.
Right, so it's only about it being coincidental and you
Hmm.
guys kind of discovering that despite not knowing and
Yeah.
having the choice not to be friends. Okay. So now we're moving on to the choice, and here's where, for me, the freedom of choice in humans is a big part of what makes us human. And I think a lot of people are throw around. I'm sure we're gonna do an episode on pride, but a lot of people throw around the word pride, and I'm proud of this, I'm proud of that. But to me, being proud of something that you haven't achieved is counterintuitive. Let's read the definition of pride actually. Um, Feeling deep pleasure or satisfaction as a result of one's own achievements, qualities, or possessions, or those of someone whom one is closely associated. So it seems to support my hypothesis that you do have to kind of work for your pride, and it is through the investment and the risk, and then the achievement of something good that pride is justified. And in the same sense, when you're just born into something and you have that by default, how can you associate any value to it? Right? I'm sure, Anna, maybe we've had this discussion um, during frisbee breaks about about simply, being proud of being born in a country, and it's kind of happening accidentally. And if you were born simply, if something accidentally happened differently in your life, you would completely change your value or mindset and your values. And I feel that seems counterintuitive to me. It seems like you should develop that through the person that you are, through the experiences that you have, not through accidentally being born into something, accidentally being someone's brother or sister, or. So
So
what
is
do
your
you think about the choice? Yeah, the value of choice.
I mean, is your point here about pride, or it's just a parallel?
Yeah, it is a parallel. Yeah.
Okay. I think that even if you don't choose with whom you associate, because you don't choose your family, but you do choose friends, in any case, you do associate with these people, you do have a bond with them. And if they have success or if they have the hardships, you will feel for them. You will be proud about their success. You will be sad about their all the hard things that may happen to them. And in this way, I feel that once you are associated with someone, once you have a relationship with someone, whether it's chosen or not, it will affect you, and it will affect you a lot. And it doesn't really matter how this relationship started. If I have a coworker, it's not, I didn't choose my coworker, but if something like bad happens to them, I will be affected. And so I just mean that any kind of relationship, whether it is chosen or not, will affect you and will have a great influence on your life and on whom you become.
Yeah. See, that's definitely where we fundamentally differ. If you're entered in the coworker example is very good because you've kind of chosen the job, and the only common thing you have with your coworkers is the job you've chosen. So I definitely don't feel any need to entertain a bond with them, at least, well, a long term one. I mean, we can get along, but I wouldn't care more about my coworkers because they are my coworkers. I would
Mm.
treat them as any other stranger. And I think that if we take what you say and consider it true for everything, you know, there's a lot of suffering and then a lot of happiness in the world. And you're saying that the only barrier between you sharing that suffering or sharing that happiness with other people is kind of knowing them. But again, that's so arbitrary. I mean, you're associated with your coworkers through your choice of a job. Maybe you've said hi to them twice, and then if you hear horrible news about them, you'll care more than if you hear them on the news about a person you've never seen. I mean, that bond is so loose, right? Like,
I'm
Yeah,
if I want you to care, if I want to make you care about someone, let's say, I need you to fund. I'm not gonna name any illness, right? But if I wanted you to care about me and I want your money, let's say, what if I just like tell you a story about myself, like, oh, this is who I am. This, we both play frisbee. Care about me, right? I mean,
are you
it's so
saying, are you
loose. It's
talking
such
about
a
how
loose
it should be or how it actually is?
No, well, right now I'm talking about what differs between Anna's perspective and mine.
I mean, you can have a perspective, but I think, like, I was about to say, I think you're human, but you're human, and the exact process that Anna just described happens to you too. When you spend more time around people, okay, you took an example where you only said hi to them twice. I think in my head, when she was talking about it, I was imagining, a coworker that you have conversations with, they share something
mhm.
about their life, and I get your point that they're just a human and other humans in life suffer also, but there is a difference. As soon as they confide in you and they tell you something about their life, maybe, what I asked is, are you talking about how it should be or how it actually is? Maybe we should care equally about everyone because everyone has hardships and we just haven't heard from other people. And why are the people we heard from special? But that's just not how it is. We have limited resources, limited resources we can allocate into other people, limited time, and it that's how it happens. You talk to people, you find out things about them, and the people you spend more time with, by choice or not by choice, you care about more.
Yeah, you're just kind of assuming that that's the case. Like, I completely agree we have limited resources, but what I'm saying is, and I'm a big proponent of this, is only waste your resources on people that have, well, first of all, you care about, but what that means for me is that I have enough information to determine that they're good people. Like, if we have a core, you said confide into you, but that's not what a coworker is necessarily. You could talk about logistics, right? You have worked in a camp, right? What if you're talking about what the plans you're gonna, the games you're gonna play with the kids the next day, like logistics, right? The same could happen about, you could have a conversation with a person in a coffee line, and they would like ask you what this new drink is composed of because they have allergies, and then you could go on and have a 10-minute conversation, essentially exposing them to you the same that you would with a new coworker, let's say. And then the day after you hear on the news that there's something horrible happened to them, I'm saying this right now, I truly wouldn't care more than if it was some random person.
I don't believe that.
That is not to say I wouldn't care. Like, I don't like injustices happening to people. I don't like seeing people sad, but they wouldn't have, because they haven't really offered me any information to care about them more. Like, yes, I technically know them. I've heard them speak. I've seen their face, but it doesn't make them more human to me. And I think that's hypocritical. That's the reason Peter Singer is such an extremist, right? He's saying, why do you care about these people that you see every day? The difference between you two is like, oh well, people like this and people that are far away and suffering is the proximity. And if you think about it, like people in Africa, people in Asia are suffering much more than what we see here. And you still care about them more because you've seen their face? That seems unreasonable to me, truly.
Okay, but Peter Singer, like, we can rationalize things, and I agree to some extent with Peter Singer, but he's controversial because what he says is counterintuitive. That's not how humans function.
Yeah, but I'm saying the controversial part of his takes is that you should give your all and be altruistic, right? I really like the point, and I fully agree with the point that you shouldn't be more altruistic to people who are simply more proximal to you, right? Like closer to you. That doesn't mean anything. My coworker, a person, I don't know, 1,000 kilometers away. I don't know distances, but like in Europe, like why would I care about them more? Because they've talked to me? I truly don't care. It doesn't change. What do you think, Anna?
I think that rationally this makes sense, but knowing our psychology and it's just totally impossible to care as much for everyone. And so practically, I think it's totally impossible to live as Peter Singer recommends to. But I feel like this is going a bit further from the topic. And um, what we could, I'm not sure what we could say now. The family thing, as Alex kind of mentioned earlier, is that the blood bond is not everything, and there's also a big aspect of growing up with your family. And so you do spend a lot of time with your family, and you see family members in their most vulnerable and their most happy times, which you wouldn't with any coworker, of course. Um, and so I think that all those shared experiences that are highly emotional do contribute to creating a very strong bond. And you may not have as many, um, you definitely don't spend as much time with your best friends as you do with your parents or siblings, at least when you're like quite young. And I think that even if it's not, you haven't chosen whom your family is, you have spent so much time with them. You have been so vulnerable with them. And you have grown up and evolved so much thanks to them that this makes a huge difference.
Okay, I see. So first of all, in researching for this episode, and I didn't include this because I didn't think it would be relevant, but I didn't include this in the document. Um, I found that people there was a finding that people statistically enjoy their time with their friends more than they do with their family, and there there is a way of interpreting that and being like amazed at that, but the way one psychologist interpreted it is because we have more mundane experiences with family, right? Washing dishes, doing chores, and the free time we have, we dedicate it to friends, right? Maybe in emotional stages to celebrate things. Well, I know like many people celebrate things with their family, but when birthday parties, who do you throw them for? Maybe there's a family one, there's a friend one. But I feel
Hmm.
like because I do agree, but that you don't have much choice in spending more time with your family than with your friends. But I mean, okay, 8 hours of that is sleeping. Then the rest is kind of like a little bit of chores. Maybe you have planned family activities, and then 8 hours you spend mostly at school or hanging out with your friends after school. So I don't even think that the time spent with friends is so much less significant. And even if it is, I feel like you would choose to confide it a lot in your friends, right? Imagine like you're hurt by someone in your family. Who's the first person you confide to, right? Your best friend. The moments we spend with our friends, because they're always a choice, right? You wouldn't be like, I guess we have to do the dishes again. Let's get at it. Like I do this with Alex, right? Is that time I enjoy? Is that time I choose to spend with him? I don't think so. Is that time quality time? I mean, let's talk quality over quantity, right?
Mm.
And in saying that, I just mean again, like let's establish what is superior about family than what a best friend could offer. And here, my question is, well, if you're saying below a certain age, you can't spend that time with your friends because you don't have any, or you don't have the choice to hang out with them, right? You can't just go out and let's say under like 7, you can't just go out of your house and hang out with your friends. It would always have to be with your parents and whatever. Is it simply the fact of co-evolving in a period of neural plasticity? Is that all it is? Oh, like, oh, my parents are present when I'm more, uh, mostly neurally plastic, and therefore my relationship with them will kind of shape my personality as a whole. Because then again, some people have friends from a very, very early age, right? Let's say two families are friends and both have children. They're gonna co-evolve together. What's the difference between that and a brother or a sister, right?
The
I
way I would state, yeah, I'm gonna let you speak. I just have a quick point.
Go
The way
ahead.
I would conceptualize family would include that sort of relationship. I don't think, like, as we established, I think blood bond has nothing to do with it. If a child is adopted and grows up with their parents, that's family, right? If you grow up with someone who's your best friend. You know what people say they consider their best friends from childhood that they spend a lot of time with? They consider them family. That's what family is yes, in a period of neuroplasticity, but not only in childhood and in a period of neuroplasticity, also just the sheer amount of time you spend with them. Anna?
I don't think it's a good idea to define family that way because then the line would be more blurry between family and friends. I think
Mm-hmm.
that maybe family could be the people who bring you up, so parents, or um, if you're adopted, would be different parents. In the case of, children who go from to family because of unstable situations, I don't really know how we could define it, but it's not usually the case. And probably you would also include the people who evolve, like who have a link to those who bring you up. So if like your parents' family and your siblings, I think it's really about being brought up and educated with those people. And I do think that the fact that you spend so much time with your family early in your life has a huge impact on your personality. And for most people, it has a bigger impact on your life than friends do. But that is not the reason why I think family is in a way superior to friends and has something more to offer.
Hmm.
Do you want to talk more about what we've said, or I could just tell you why I think family has something more to offer?
I have a question.
Mhm.
What about cousins then?
Yeah, I thought about that. I guess, well, they're definitely family because there's this blood bond. I I don't know. Maybe if you're adopted, cousins would be the people who are brought up by your the people who have a blood bond with your parent. But that's getting complicated.
Okay, and
Because yeah, because the
okay.
way you're restricting family to like parents and siblings, right? People you're brought up with. Uh, I think Chris would be happy about that because then you're excluding like other family members. Like cousins don't really count as being brought up with them, right? Because I think, well, it depends. Some cousins are closer, but sometimes it's just like, oh, seeing each other a couple times a year, you know. Um, and if you're saying it's just direct family, like parents and siblings, then I think that Chris, what do you think about that?
Yeah, interestingly, when I think about my cousins and the time I spent with them, I do feel closer than let's say we've seen our cousins like what
Interestingly, you're human. What?
2 years. No, because I do appreciate them, but this is what I always say. Okay, I'm gonna say two things. I'm sorry, Anna. Like I'm probably gonna disrupt the flow of what you want to say, but
That's fine. That's okay.
two things. One, I always say this. I'm lucky to get along with you, Alex. I'm lucky
Mm,
that I like you because if I
mm-hmm.
didn't, it would not be an enjoyable household.
Right.
It's not like, oh, you're my brother, therefore I like you. No, 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 no. I'm so lucky I like you, and you're my brother, so I have to spend time with you, and therefore, thank God, right? But then it's the same thing with our cousins, right? Like if they were unenjoyable people, which I don't have necessarily a family member that I know to be an unenjoyable person right now in my head, and I'm very judgmental about that. Like I'm very, like I wouldn't hold back on that. But we don't know a lot of our family, but the ones we do know are people that I choose to spend time with, right? Like our grandma. I'm lucky I really like my grandma because otherwise I wouldn't necessarily want to talk to her just because she's my grandma.
Mm-hmm.
So that said, one thing that has always bothered me, and I know it's mostly in movies, but movies are representations of real life, and it's children who it's usually a good, storyline. Children who find out late in their life they were adopted, and then they feel like their whole life is a lie, and oh, you're not my parent anymore, you're not my dad, you're not my mom, and this bewilders me. Okay, because a person who has chosen to pour their all and to be a loving parent, and you see like usually they're just actually good parents, and now you find out this insignificant blood bond that technically that's not the genetic parent that you had, but the person has spent the last like 16 years, pouring their all into making you a person, and they find out that, and then they go on a wild search for their real parents, their real in quotes, right? But and that has always bothered me to an insane level because the person who has chosen to abandon you for whatever reason, it doesn't really matter, should really have no influence on your life. Like I don't see any additional influence. And
That never made sense to me either. Yeah.
I disagree. I think it makes sense. I think the well, did you finish your point?
yeah, I did explore both, and just one thing to guide your answer. Just once
Uh,
we've determined the blood bond doesn't matter, what are we talking about? Like, what's the importance
well,
there?
okay, so I would say actually the blood bond does matter because it's the genetic, and if you do realize that the people who brought you up are not your biological parents, you like identity wise, you may wonder how everything you have, everything you are, is influenced by genetic, and you may wonder who are those adults who gave you this genetic. And it actually has a big influence. So I think I would be interested in knowing who those people are. Actually, I'm not sure. I'm not sure. But I think it makes a difference. And the other thing, the reason why I think those children who realize that their parents aren't really their parents, what affects them deeply is that these people who cared for them lied to them. And it's not trivial. It's not trivial. And if someone broke your trust by lying about their relationship to you, I think this can totally change your relationship with them. Maybe it shouldn't, but it should make you reconsider it because this person lied to you big time.
I truly don't see it as a lie, but I think it's a circular reasoning from my side. But once you do take away the value of the word family as a blood bond, right? Maybe you've come back on your word on
Hmm.
your opinion on the blood bond, but let's take away that, right? Someone who has given 20 years of their life and has fed you and has made the choice to stay with you and care for you, that to me is the definition of the word family, and there is no lie to that. You could honestly just look me in the eyes and say I am your parent, and knowing that they're not my biological parent, I would never even like consider saying that they're telling me a lie. Do you understand?
Okay, yeah, but if they make you think that they are your biological parents, then this is a lie.
Yeah, that's usually the context. Well, again, I'm talking. Unfortunately, I'm talking about movies, but usually the condition is the biological parent went through some hardships and was forced to abandon the child, and then they don't, the adoptive parents don't want the child to find out about their circumstances and just to live a good life, and they
Mhm.
they make sure that the child does. I don't know. To me,
And
that's just a good existence. And then I don't know if you were gonna go on to something else, but let's just come back to the genetic part. I mean, it comes back to the nature versus nurture debate,
yeah.
right? Like you say, oh, you're defined by your genetics. Okay, but earlier on we said you're defined by your neural plasticity period and the interactions that you have during it. So let's say it's 50-50. The genetics you have are what you already have. Like that's never ever going to change. Even if it's 50-50, like you're born with them, do something with them. And what you do with them are the interactions with your real parents. Well, the ones that brought you up, right? Are the interactions with um, the people that are part of your childhood. And even if we take the nurture stance as more important, well, the friends that you have and the significant experiences you have with them, might as well call them family. That's how I see it.
The only example I have for now about the importance of nature, of genetic in whom you become, and how knowing that, how realizing whom your true biological parents are throughout life can be informative is if you have, for example, some neurological difference. You have ADHD, you have, I don't know, autism. Like, you just deviate from the norm, and you don't really fit in a certain way. You have this feeling that you're different, but you haven't really realized why. And maybe like knowing that, oh, it's my biological parents did have like such differences. My biological parents had ADHD or had autism, then maybe it would inform you and have like make a big difference. But I should really think about other examples because that's not really strong and that's not very common.
Right, but okay, but let's even take that, right? You still are what you are, right?
Yeah.
Um, Even if your real parents are the parents you grew up with, right? Well, your okay, I'm throwing around the term real parents, but let's forget that. Your biological parents are the ones you grew up with. Nothing is 100% heritability, right? I don't think anything is
Mhm.
100%. So what defines you is what you are genetically. And I mean, Alex, you're closer to that. What's the crossover thing? Random the random part of reproduction. What is it called? When genes cross over and it makes something new. Essentially, the addition of the two parts
Don't know.
don't define the whole, right?
Hmm.
Yeah, that those chromosomes cross over and you don't really have exactly the bagage that your parents give you.
Right, right. Like your two of your parents can have your like brown eyes, and then you can have blue eyes with a dormant gene of some coincidence. I mean, you still have blue eyes. What does it matter that your biological parents have brown eyes, right? Like, you are what you are. That's the thing. Like, everything that you're born with is not a choice, and then after that, you can forget it. Like, after the moment that you're born, nothing matters what happened before that. What matters are the things that you will do with that. And what you will do with that, again, I will repeat myself, are the relationships with the people who will be present in your childhood, right?
So your point is that um, the blood bond, the fact that family has a genetic similarities with you, doesn't really matter because even if you don't know whom your biological family is, if you know yourself, if you know your genetics, you would have all the information that you would have, and even you would have much better information than if you knew whom your biological parents were. And so that maybe this blood bond thing we could just throw away because it's not that important.
I think it's important, but I don't think it's continually important. I also think you overuse the word whom, but I just think I just think um, you know how like it's what I'm trying to express is it stops it stops like yeah, you are stuck with your genetics, but who gave it to you stops defining you after the moment of your birth because you're stuck with them anyway. They're not okay, let's say like this. Your biological parents aren't going to change how your genetics define you, but your adoptive parents or the people you grew up with during your childhood, even if they are your biological parents, they continually affect you in your childhood, and then they will continue to affect you in their adulthood and your adulthood, and they can even go back and modify the way in which your childhood affects you. Right? We see a lot of like therapy going back to you know on going back on burnt bridges and rediscussing parts of your childhood, right? And the way they define you, and uh, certain traumas being re-explained and re-explored by open discussions, right? I feel like that's a very important part of therapy, and that's not something you can achieve with genetics. I mean, it's so ludicrous to even like hold certain resentments for, oh no, my parents weren't above 6 feet and now I'm stuck at 5'10". I'm so resentful. Well, that's ludicrous. That's You can forget that. That doesn't affect
True
life in any
story for
way.
you.
Sorry, what?
True story for you.
True story for me. So it's I think it's a way about life has value in a continuous way, and your psychology constantly evolves but doesn't change, right? As we determined last episode. And okay,
As you
we
did.
didn't determine it, yeah. and I think there's a certain point to be made about the fact that if something remains constant for the rest of your life, it's just not that important, right? Like, okay, my hair is brown, but I want to be blonde. Okay, well now you can paint your hair, but let's say my eyes are again, you can probably modify any part, but let's come back to rational times where you can, modify your eye color. My eyes are brown, but I really think I would look better in blue. Maybe I can discuss with my biological parents what we can do. Like, no, 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 that has no value. Decisions I take, the the traumas that I live, the happy moments that I live, those things matter, and they will continue to matter, and they can be modified through other experiences with those same people. And that's, I mean, yes, I'm taking the nurture side, and I will always be a nurture um,
Freak.
freak, but fanatic. I don't know, a supporter more so than I would be of nature, because I think exactly what I said at the beginning of the episode. Free will defines us, and if you focus on the things that, what's the prayer things, Alex? Give
What?
give me the serenity to accept what I can't change, and the courage
That's
to
the yeah a maxim.
yeah.
Uh, give me the wisdom to wait. I'm gonna look it up and continue
Okay,
talking.
so what do you think about that?
Yeah, I agree. I agree on pretty much everything you said. And also, nurture and your lived experience can change your genetic through like epigenetics, which we won't get into, but it does add to your point.
Grant me
Yeah,
the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. I think you're just trying to say smart stuff. We're good though.
absolutely not. But I could have invented that actually. Who knows if I came up with that? But again, okay. I don't know. I feel like I'm winning.
No, yeah, I mean, I was. Anna lost me for a bit there. I don't. The example of um, not being with your biological parents your whole life and then wanting desperately to meet them doesn't make sense to me. So I agreed with most of the stuff you said there, even though, yeah, yeah.
Okay, Anna, unless you have something substantial to say, I maybe we can give you time to process that, and I'm gonna bring up a new point. No, no,
I
I'm not
will
being
say a small
sarcastic in
thing.
any way. Okay, please do, please do. No, no, I
I
truly am
do
not.
no, I do think you have good points, but the big thing to me is the trust thing. So I still think that you cannot, it does change your relationship when you realize that someone has like lied to you in that way.
Oh yeah,
Like
I agree.
so
I agree with you
yeah.
on that though, because Chris seemed to ignore it completely. But like, if it doesn't matter at all, what problem is there for the adoptive parents to say, "Yo, we're not your real parents. We adopted you, and that's it." Not saying that is just very, very weird.
Right, then there's the argument of, are they withholding information, or were they ever asked directly and answered no? But yeah,
Hmm.
I understand that, yes, if you do with even if you do, like, let's take the weaker part, and you do withhold that information from someone, and they think, even at until 20 years old, I I wouldn't want to linger on that, but I feel like it would be reasonable to make a child's childhood smooth, and not make them feel cast away or different in any way, by never revealing to them that they're not their
If family doesn't matter,
biological
why
parents.
is that? Why
No,
would
no,
that
I know,
cast
I
them
know, but
away? Why would that make them?
we can have this rational discussion right now. But to evolving children who don't have a fully developed consciousness is just like, it's like a bully angle, right? Like, oh, your parents aren't your parents. You don't actually you don't know your real parents.
Hmm.
What
Hmm.
I'm saying is, when you mature enough to understand the value that your adoptive parents have poured into your life, I think it should be revealed, and your reaction will be your reaction, whatever you think about that. But I do think it's reasonable to, when a child has the, capacities to understand fully what that means, I think that it should be revealed to them. I don't think it should be revealed before that. I don't think at 4 years old you should be saying, "Hey, you live with us and we put you to bed, but you're not a real child, so just know that." Like, I don't think that adds any value.
No, no, no. I think you should never withhold this information. You should be like honest from the beginning. And the child, maybe if the child processes this adequately only at 20 years old, well, that's fine. That it will be at 20. That's okay. But that's not the point. So I guess you we could have this debate another time, and you can just go on with your other point.
Hmm. I don't know. Can I? Because, for me,
You
there's a
think it's
big barrier
important?
between children and like adolescents and people who I can consider adults. And again, it's not like the legal limit I'm talking about, but the barrier between, you know, being overweight and seeing that as the end of the world and being an outcast to becoming an adult and understanding that it's your choice, although that might sound controversial to some who haven't really put thought into anything, or just embracing it and knowing that your lifestyle is, if you enjoy your lifestyle and you can live with the consequences, I don't know. To me, it feels like something that you're adding onto their childhood and making it more difficult. But I am against lying of any sort.
You've
But
got to sort this out.
yeah, okay. But maybe we should do an episode on authenticity or honesty and
Yeah.
fully explore that. Maybe that's what would determine it. Hmm. Okay, so let's move on to the following. I have said that the big difference between a friendship and a familyhood, is that a thing? Should be a thing.
Sure.
Familiarity. The big the big difference between the two is choice. But here's the biggest choice. Imagine having a child, right? That is the biggest choice. You choose to create life for someone. So maybe let's explore how that is different. To me, that's an isolated case of being a superior bond to a family bond, the bond of a parent to a child, and then let's explore its difference from the child's perspective to the parent perspective. So, how do you think? Well, first of all, let's say this: do you think having chosen to create someone's life um, holds you to higher standards than simple family would hold you to? Right? Like, oh, it's my cousin, right? It's my brother's brother or whatever. I don't know family bonds, but
I think obviously yes.
okay.
Yeah. You mean that you would owe something to the child,
Exactly. In a way,
and
you
that's something you
wouldn't,
don't owe to your cousin or
or
siblings.
honestly, anyone else in this life,
Yeah.
because we wanted to do an episode on unconditional loyalty, and we just might. But
Oh, we just
oh,
might.
we just might. Be careful, everyone. Hold your sails. All right, whatever. But
No, dude. And wait, are you saying you're conceding that this specific bond between parent and child just may be superior to friendship?
100%. If
Okay.
my bigger argument is friendship is somewhat equivalent to family bonds, then if we assume that that's true, I think this would truly mean family, like have like the relationship of a parent towards a child. That's what if yeah, if we were to hold something as superior, that would be it. And
I just want to throw something in. We can come back to it later. But what do we mean by superior? Like, what is this? How can relationship be superior to another? What does that mean?
I do think coming back to unconditional loyalty or maybe the feeling of owing something to someone. Again, if I didn't like Alex, and I moved out and maybe would talk to him once a year just to respect our bond as brothers, maybe that's what I do, right? Or maybe never talk to him again because we were forced to live in the same household. But I think that even if you don't like your child in a way, even if I made the decision to create someone and didn't like them, I would feel like I am owed to them to entertain, uh, I mean, at the minimum, whatever they want me to entertain with them. Because guess what? I created someone that will always be on my shoulders in a way, right? Like coming back
That
to
wasn't even a
pride, like
politician answer. That was a rambling psychopath answer. What defines a bond as superior?
so what defines a bond as superior is what you owe to someone, or yeah, what you owe to someone, and unconditional loyalty, the presence of yeah.
Um, would you mean because if I owe $1 million to someone I've borrowed money to, like this is not a superior relationship? Do you mean that it's that you owe care, or do you mean that a relationship is superior if it has to be on the very long term?
It's a good point. I don't know exactly what you owe, but I think you owe if the other person, if the other party or your children want to entertain a relationship with you, I think you owe it to them to
Mm.
continue to do that.
So the extent to which you're attached, like we could imagine being like literally bond to someone, attached to them.
Yeah, sure.
This would be superior. Like the extent to which it's hard to get out of this relationship, the extent to which it would be wrong to get out of this relationship.
Yeah, let's say there's a thread that unites you with everyone you've entered in a relationship with. I would see
Mm.
no thread attaching you to anyone on this earth except someone you have put into life.
All right, I get that.
I don't know the
I'm not
extent
sure I
of
agree, but I get that.
yeah, I don't know the extent of like, the thickness of the thread, and that's what you mean by right, but that's what you mean by
Yeah.
owing something to someone. I don't know what you owe them, but it is my intuition that you have to kind of live with your choices. That's, again, coming back to free will. Let's make the biggest decision you could ever do, right? Let's have a child. Well, you're going to live with that.
I think what you owe, the way I conceptualize relationship as stronger or weaker is how much you care about their life, about what happens in their life, about their positive or negative experiences. It's just you owe them care, just caring. It doesn't. It can take many forms, right? It can be that you are always there for them continually. You talk to them every day. You ask them how they are, but it could be like a distant care where like you arrange it so that their life goes better, but like truly caring about their life. Um, well, yeah,
Yeah. Maybe, if we didn't have to set a barrier, the needs that you have and the wants that you have, maybe you would kind of do your best to ensure their needs, right? They're fed, they're whatever, right? Because
Hmm.
you have
wants
chosen,
and needs.
actually, you know what? You have chosen to cast the obligation on someone to fulfill their needs, right? That's what it means to cast someone into life. You have cast the obligation to fulfill their needs. Well, guess what? That burden, want it or not, is on you now. That unless you
Your
want someone to die,
responsibility.
yeah, I feel like that seems reasonable. That seems like you're putting this into the universe. Well, you're gonna make sure it's gonna sustain itself in the universe. And I know you have Anna, you have a life example of exactly that happening, right? Someone not wanting to um, go above and beyond to fulfill their child's needs. I don't know if you want to talk about that. Sorry, their wants, but they do fulfill their child's needs. Correct?
Yeah, but yeah. This person, so it's just a parent um, who decides to refuse things for their child, but not like small things, like big things, and this affects their relationship a lot. So it's a very distant relationship. These two persons have not seen each other for years, um, and the kid is quite young. He's 20. Um, but the parent still thinks that he is offering what's best for his child in a given context. And he does think that it is best for his child to not receive what the child asks for. And um, so, in this sense, people can have very different definitions of what is good for someone, for a child. And if the parent, and I think the parent's responsibility is to do what he thinks is best and become well informed about what is probably really best, so that he can fulfill the kid's needs to the best of his abilities. But maybe the perception of the quality of this care would be different from people to people, from person to person.
Yeah. And I think it's honorable what he does, and
Hmm.
ironically, I would set it as the bare minimum because when you set someone into life, that's what you have to do. But I also wouldn't set the maximum way above that, right? Like he's not obliged to buy him, the MacBook Pro Plus Slim, right? It's
Hmm.
it's not necessary for his life, and I wouldn't even place the perfect parent as someone who makes the most money and gives the most money to their children. That's not what I would place the perfect parent as.
Definitely. But
So that's yeah.
what's interesting in this case is that mm, material matters, like issues about buying stuff and money, have a deep impact on their emotional closeness and their relationship as a whole. And so it's as if, like in this case, the parent has to um, accept that not giving some things to his child because he thinks that's what's best for them and fair will make his child angry at him and will make his child more distant. And I'm that's another question. Could you, to what extent should you do what you think is best for your child, even if that implies getting further from this child, and even if that implies having them being angry at you? So
Yeah, yeah. I
if
can
we take
yeah, yeah, sorry, go.
if we take this parent's perspective, it is more important to provide what he values and what he thinks is best for the child than to work than to have a close relationship.
Yeah. I think, let's take an extreme example. Let's say someone is very restrictive and very, enforces discipline on their child during their childhood, and their child hates them for that. But that makes them a stronger well, that makes the child a stronger person. And as soon as they can leave the household because it is so restrictive and maybe I don't know, enforces discipline. But as soon as they leave the household hating the parent, they're still shaped to be a very, you know, resilient person. And what the parent has ensured in a way, it's the way I see it is, teach a he him they to fish and provide them fish for, I don't know what the saying, how the saying goes, but you know what I'm saying. So it's, yeah, maybe he can provide fish every month for him, or maybe he can teach him how to fish and be hated by him, but still ensure a good life. And I think there are different ways to go about good parenting. And I
Hmm.
also think in an ideal world, if you have become a person of virtue and you have determined what is best in life, um, again, in an ideal world, yeah, even becoming further with your child could mean being a good parent if you enforce good values on them, and that makes them hate you, but that makes them better people. Alex, maybe you have an opinion on this because you're a virtue man.
I think we're straying away. Sorry, I tuned out for the last bit because I think we're straying away from the family versus friendship. You can talk about it still, but I want to bring us back after.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Yeah.
I
I'm
agree
just,
with you, Chris.
yeah, okay,
And yeah, so it is different than the comparison between family and friends, but I think the point that's interesting is that what parents owe to their children is not only a close relationship. It's much more complicated and deeper than that. It's not just immediate care.
right, and
It's
in a way,
education.
yeah, 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 exactly. The minimum, right? The natural needs that we have. I mean, but now it's what, it's illegal to drop out before 16. We'll call that a need, as much as food is. So what I would call that is unconditional loyalty. And maybe coming back to, the word owing someone something to someone, maybe it's just the word responsibility towards the ensuring their life, or maybe
Hmm.
even going above that and ensuring they're going to be good people. Maybe in an ideal world, but I mean, who could say that they are a good person, and therefore how could you teach someone to be a good person? But again, so I
Okay.
think that, so I'll just finish my thought.
Yeah.
I think that if you call that unconditional loyalty, I don't think, if I didn't like Alex, I don't think I would feel unconditional loyalty towards him. And therefore, if we were separated at some point in our lives and he was, I don't know, not doing that well, I don't know if I would help him if I didn't like him, right? Like in the same way that I would help my child, like out of a, you know.
Okay. And what about friends?
Yeah, well,
What would you owe to them?
I would only owe to them in return for what they offer me. So if they're the same people that I became friends with, and I can choose to become friends with them, that's where the choice comes in, right? I have chosen to associate with this person. That is how I want to navigate life. This is a person I value in my life. And I think people often, well, I feel like we've spoken about this, but they often associate too much value with friendship, and they forget that. Well, actually, I'm saying they forget that as if it was a fact and it wasn't just my opinion, but I think that it's about the value that they continually provide for you, because life is continuous, and valuing what people have done for you, 3 years ago in high school when you were really close, and the people that they are now. Um, you should reconsider friendships as time goes. So what I'm saying is, no, I don't think you owe unconditional loyalty or you have a responsibility towards your friends' well-beings. But if they provide value in your life, you should provide value in exchange for that, right? If someone, I don't know, emotionally recomforts you, no, comforts you, then you should be able to be there and provide the same for them. I mean, if they're financially struggling, okay, we're kind of switching the type of help you're providing. But if you think they're gonna provide more emotional help in the future, then yeah, you should help them financially.
I, I think this sort of ties back with what I wanted to come back to. I think the core of uh, our disagreement with you, to the extent that I agree with Anna, is the point she said earlier was that in some sense the fact that you don't have a choice with family makes it even better, and that's why family is better. Because okay, what you were just saying is that it's like a continuous exchange of something valuable. Like, oh, you like help me emotionally, you help me financially, and we exchange that. But I think what you fail to see, I'm not saying it's true. It's just that something that I see that you don't see. What you fail to see is just as I said, relationships is about caring. How to what extent you care about the person's life and how emotionally invested you are in their well-being, how much you love them. And I think not having the choice of spending your whole childhood with people, which is how I defined family earlier. Like I sort of uh like for me it absolutely doesn't matter if it's an adoptive child. Um if like it's just someone you spend a lot of time with. I think if you're really close friends since childhood, you can call that person a family, because the way I define it is just the sheer amount of time you spend with a person. It's not something tangible that you can see. It's not uh, something you could quantify the value you give. Oh, you gave me 5 conversations and I gave you 3 conversations. I owe you more. I owe you money. You owe me money. I think it's when you spend time with someone, you develop a bond with them. You develop uh, love. You care for their life more than you would with someone that you don't spend time with. And you're forced to spend time with family. So that bond in general is stronger. And that's why I define it as not relating to blood bonds, because I think it's just the time you're forced to spend with them. Like whether you want it or not, you're forced to develop love for them.
I mean, you could say that about a household setting, but in the same way, like, okay, what happened? You were born into family X, and you're forced to spend time with Y for X amount of years. Okay, I came back with X, but whatever. Okay, but how is that different from having a job that you really like? You chose, well, whatever. You have the job, and you have a coworker whom you're forced, no, who you're forced to spend time with, right? For oh, and you've done so for like 5 years, and if you collaborated on projects together, but what if they're just a
Yeah, but
bad
it's the
person?
it's the depth of the relationship too. It's because with a family you have shared projects. You have to, when you're young, they bring you everywhere. They bring you to activities or something. uh, you have shared activities that you do together. A coworker is not the same
Yeah,
thing.
we
It's
go out
not
on
the
drink
same
on the
depth.
Sundays to enforce the bond of coworkers. Like, I'm just
You
saying,
see how that's not the same thing.
I 100% don't see how it's not the same thing, because once you deny the blood bond part, he's just someone you have to spend time with. You have to define it clearly for me. Is it about the childhood part? Is it about the neural plasticity? Is it about co-evolving that you can't have with coworkers because it's later in your life? What is it exactly? What if you come in as my brother when we're 8 years old because we were separated at birth, and we only spend 8 years together till we're 16 instead of like 16 years together? Does that make us like imagine someone was my friend from childhood, and I've known him for since like I was 2 years old, and now I know him for 6 more years than you. Does that make him more my brother than you? I don't get it. You have to like define exactly what it means. Like, you know, some families that are close friends, what if they babysit for one another? What if they spend as much time, the children spend as much time together as brother and sister would, right? How does that make it different? Well, what is the
I see
word
your point.
family?
I see your point. I don't know how to define family, but I think you're um, just think about what you do with a family. Like all you're developing your life with them, right? Just the sports, the passions you have, the hobbies, the your life aspirations. You share your experiences with them and everything. It's not the same thing as a coworker. It could be the same thing as a coworker, and probably the fact that you're young has an effect on it too. But
I don't
yeah,
know,
it's
man.
just
I work
time
on
spent.
I work
Yeah.
on life projects with friends. I have good times with them. I spend time. I don't know.
Yeah, but we have much more overlap with our lives than you have with a friend. We're family
Yeah, but
because
why? What? Like, okay, I move out, right? We already don't live together. What are we gonna do? Like, meet on the weekends and call each other sometimes? I would do that with a friend.
okay, so maybe it has to do with evolving together. Then. Young, when you're
That's
young and
what
you
I'm trying
evolve
to get
together.
at. Like, once you give more value, again, I hope we've defined what it means. Once you give more value to the relationship you have with family, I'm asking you, what does family really mean? And now we've kind of like blurred the lines between them, right? Step parents, close friends of families. So what is it? Time spent together? Time spent together in a period of neural plasticity? Like, specifically, what do you guys mean? Because I don't think I'm closer with my cousin than I am with my best friend. Is it about the directness of the blood bond? Anna, you wanna come back or?
Yeah, you talked about giving more value to family relationships. And I would not agree with this point actually. I think my point is a bit different. It's that family relationships have something to offer that friendships cannot offer. And it doesn't mean that you should value your family more than you should value your friends, or that you should care more for your family than you should care for your friends. Um, yeah,
So
and I could go on,
okay, so
but
you think it's different, but you don't
okay.
necessarily think one is above the other, and you think that we should judge people for who they are and the relationship we have with them and the feelings we have towards them, and not their bonds.
Um, I guess yeah. I guess you should value relationships individually for what they bring you, for how important they are to your well-being or the construction of your identity. And I think that whether someone is from your family or not, whether it's a friend or a coworker, whatever, you should not base your judgment, and you should not value this. Well, actually, I was about to say you shouldn't value their this relationship more or less because of the status only that it has. But I actually think it's false, because there are family members with whom I do not um, feel that close, or I don't feel as much connection with them. I don't share as much values with them as I do with friends, for example. And and I still want to entertain and to keep this relationship strong with them because they're family. Because not because I feel like I owe them something, but I guess because there has been so much care put into this relationship for years, and I
I
think there
yeah.
is, I'm not even sure where I'm going with this, but there is some proximity that is built. Even if you don't share all your values, and even if you don't share hobbies with some family members, there's a proximity because you have spent so many years together in vulnerable moments, in enjoyable moments.
Yeah,
Yeah.
again, my different my thing I'm trying to determine is the difference that has with friends. I mean, I've been vulnerable with friends as much as with family. But
The
let me, okay,
yeah.
Alex, I do have a quite a big point, but Alex, maybe I'm gonna forget it quicker than you, so let me say it first, please.
Mhm.
Write it down.
No, no, no. So my thing is, what if it's just about social acceptance? What is it? The weird uncle stereotype, right? What if it's about it's kind of a circular argument in the sense that if your family thinks your family is important, you have to hold them as important because you're I mean, oh, he's such the weird uncle who does says weird things to kids and always drinks a lot on Christmas, but he's still invited because everyone considers him family. Well, what if you take a family member and change everyone's perspective in your family about that family member, and you make them accept my point about family, and no one now values him as a family member, and we have to judge him for who he truly is, and now the weird uncle isn't invited. Does your sense of familyhood change for that person, right? Is it just about social acceptance? And if your family didn't think that that person was family, although they were blood related, well, I
No,
mean,
look,
who are they now? Okay.
the way I see it is less like I feel less like in a family with our cousins who we don't see that often than I do with you. My point, and I think at the end Anna was agreeing with me a little bit, that is that the time spent, the way I see it, like my bond with you, let's say, all the time we spent together, all the good times, bad times, made us care about each other enormously. Same with our parents. And I think it's really wrong to conceptualize a relationship in terms of like our relationship, let's say, in terms of an exchange of goods or an exchange of care or an exchange of whatever. If you don't speak with me for the next 7 years and I find out you're in a bad spot in 7 years, I don't know who you are, you've changed. I don't care because of the things we spent, uh,
Allegedly changed.
allegedly changed in 7 years, because of the time we spent together and the depth of our relationship, just the the sheer amount of care I have for you, I would want to help you. It doesn't matter that you've changed, that you have different values, just because you're family and that we spend all this time together and that our bond is that deep. I would want to help you no matter who you are in 10 years.
Okay, I
So
think
what
yeah.
what you also mean, Alex, is that if Chris was not your brother and was not really family, but if he was a childhood friend that you became roommate with, whatever. So it's not like a blood bond, but it's still your definition of family. It
Yeah,
wouldn't change the thing. It would still be the case that after not spending time with him for 7 years, you would still care about him and want to help him out, right?
and that's where I think the value of not having a choice is in family, is that like you're forced to spend the time that it took to for me to develop that bond with you, Chris. You're forced to spend that time, and like you shouldn't, you have different values, you have different hobbies, whatever. You spend that time, you care about that person, no matter what you choose.
Okay, I think I mischaracterized what I mean by friendship. I characterize the proceedings of a friendship as an exchange of favors, but to me, a friendship, well, I said it earlier, but it's a person whom you determine to be a good person, a person you want to associate with, a person worthy of your attention and care, and then choose to do so. Maybe a lot of people I'm going through like in my life, I don't have enough information for me to determine that. But with you, yes, I didn't have a choice to do so. But then that just means that family is time you're forced to spend together because the time we spent together, I have had time to determine that you're a person of value and whom I want to associate with. That's what happened. If you weren't that person, and if it just so happened, right? People have bad brotherhoods and sisterhoods. If it happened that you were a bad person and I was forced to spend like 18 years with you, I don't think I would value you the same. And unfortunately, I don't have an example to fall back on, as as a family member I was forced to spend time with that I don't like because we don't know
Mm.
that much of our family. But that's what would happen if it just so happened that you evolved completely differently due to your genetics or whatever happened in your brain, or you were some crazy person, and I had spent 18 years with you. I think I would hate you more than I would hate you to the same level that I appreciate you now, right? It would just
Right.
increase the
Yeah.
magnitude that you put into a certain relationship, and that's I don't know. That's
This makes me think of another fundamental point we disagree on, where I would think I think my view is that everyone has something of value that you could find uh, So like no matter who I was and who you were
Right.
when we were
Broken
growing up, I
clock
think
right twice a day, but what I'm saying is we have limited
no,
resources.
just stop saying stuff that. Okay,
No,
go
I'm
ahead.
the quote guy. I'm the quote guy, but
No, you're not.
yeah, well, yeah, it sucks, isn't it? Yeah.
I think I would know if you were a different person. Like the way you are now is sick, and I love you the way you are. But I think if you were a different person, just because you're my brother and you were my family, I would find value in you. I think there's value in every human. But whatever, that's not to the point,
Yeah,
I
but
think.
like, oh, you're forced to find value in me. Like, okay, let's say you're put in jail with someone for 30 years and you serve your entire sentence with them. Like, are they going to be a family member just because you were forced to spend 30 years with them and they're a horrible killer human being? But like, oh well, it's because we don't have a choice, and I have to find ways to appreciate him. Like, well, he killed a bunch of people, but he's really strong, and I appreciate that in him.
Guys, I actually agree with both of you, and I think I do agree that if you
Yay!
if you so I'm the mediator, I'm making everyone happy. um, but no, if you spend years growing up with a family member that you dislike, you may hate this person, right? So Chris, I agree with you. um, but I do think that you can find value in this person. It doesn't mean that you will find um, good qualities in this person, but the presence of this person in your life will bring value to you and will help you learn so much. There, like, I'm very, very, very grateful that some of my family members are people I disagree with, are people with whom I don't share that many values, and are people whom I would not want to spend that much time with or any time with. And I'm grateful that I was forced to spend time with them, because and it would never have been the case if they were not family, but I was forced to spend time with people who are different from me, who have different values, and maybe these are people whom I would hate if I had known in in different circumstances. Though hate is a strong word, and I'm not very hateful, but I'm
Allegedly.
grateful I get to spend time with them because I learned so much. I learned about different human beings, and if you were only to spend time with people with whom you agree, with people who share your values, and with people you appreciate, your understanding of humanity, of the human mind, of life, your knowledge, every would be you would lose so much. You would not know as much. You would not have such a wealthy view of the world and of yourself if you were only to spend time with people with whom you choose to spend time with. So I'm grateful I get to spend time with people I don't choose to spend time with.
Okay, okay. I think, by the way, like, I don't think you can have a wealthy relationship. I think it's just rich. I think wealthy is truly just about money. Correct me if I'm wrong.
That's
Might be.
that may be the case. I can just
Okay,
research it.
okay.
Search it up.
I'll
Dude,
try to conclude this.
semantics.
No, no, no. I'm just, I love exactitude, as you know me. So okay, I'll try to conclude this by saying the following. Okay, can we all agree that the obligation to spend time with someone um, increases by orders of magnitude? I don't even know if that's how you use that, but increases the magnitude of whatever relationship you were gonna have with that person if you encountered them randomly, right? I meet someone that I don't appreciate in a coffee line that's complaining about the time it's taking to the barista to make the coffee. Well, I'm gonna just like glance over them and choose not to spend time with them. Well, lock me in a childhood home with that person for 18 years, and I'll learn a whole bunch. Now, we haven't had a lot of interactions with our extended family, Alex and I, and I have always had the perspective that you should choose the people you spend time with, and I've only chose favorable people to spend time with. Now, that's also the reason perhaps I can't say that I hate anyone. Hate is a strong word, and you have to get to know a person to their core to understand how hateable perhaps they are. And I don't have anyone to say that I hate them, right? So if we were to define family, it would be people who were forced to spend a lot of time with. You know, sure, like usually it's about the blood bond, but maybe we can come to a new definition where yeah, it's anyone you are forced to spend time with and get to know them to their core, whatever that means, and they enhance our relationships, whether good or bad, and they make us learn more because the depth of our relationship with someone is, I mean, it's our best teacher in life, right? Our interactions with other humans, and usually we only choose favorable ones, but in this case, you don't get to choose, and that adds value to your life in a way that other things don't. But that also doesn't mean that you have to appreciate them more necessarily. You just
I do agree.
okay, because if it's everything that I just said, I can come to a conclusion that that's the case, and maybe even accept that in certain ways it could be worth more than friendship because of that. Um,
Because
right? Like, how
is
do
it
you get
what?
better at debates? Right? Like, argue against people who don't agree with you. Well,
Definitely.
that's a very useful skill. And if I just had someone who disagrees with me on everything, and I would just say like, well, they're not my friend. I don't like. They always are so disagreeable. But put them at a dinner table 18 Christmases in a row, and I become a better debater. So in that sense, they add more value to your life than friends do. Well, they could add more value because you have to coexist with people that you disagree with, or if there are people you agree with, well, that's the most beautiful thing. That's what we call love, like family love, right?
That's what we call love.
And that's what we call love, and that's where we end, friends. Okay, if everyone can agree on this, I am feeling a good figured it out rating.
It's
Sure.
quite
Any
good.
final thoughts? Any final thoughts?
Um, no, I think that was good.
Okay, so obviously, I think one of the biggest unaddressed things was should you lie to your child about being their step parent? But no, really, really, I do think so. And maybe we
Okay.
can, no, really, like I think that's a big thing, and the barrier between white lies from someone who can process information correctly as an adult, and white lies towards the child that are of no consequence and could better their life, right? Like if you say you're their parents until they start questioning why their hair is blonde and yours is brown, right? Until they learn about genetics. But until that time, they won't feel different from other people who only have biological parents. But anyway, I think that's for our episode on honesty and authenticity. Thanks a lot for Anna's presence. It was a pleasure, and I think we came to a lot of conclusions because of your opposition. So I would consider you my family.
It was a pleasure.
uh,
Figured
s-
it out ratings.
yeah, figured it out rating. Do you want to say it, Anna? Do you know what it is?
Yeah, I do. I'd say 9.
I am feeling a 9. It's juicy. I love it.
I would say uh I'm gonna say 7, just because I still like I started discussing what I define family, and I'm not more confused. I think I clarified it a little bit, but I'm not sure exactly what family is. Um,
Yeah.
and no, you know what? It's an 8. Okay, it's a solid 8.
8. So due to
Yes.
democracy, it's a 9 because 2 votes for 9 and one for 8.
You don't want to do a point 66.
Uh, well, I'm gonna do averages when it benefits me and well,
Let's round it up.
let's just round it up, man. I love math. Uh, I don't think decimals are accepted on the Spotify description page.
Okay, end it, dude.
So go to thinkinbros.com for more information. We love you all. Anna was actually our first person to write in and to tell us what she thinks, and we have a lot of inspiration for future episodes. So we're honored to have her as a guest.
Thank you very
Thank you,
much.
and we'll see you next week.